We begin with this fundamental question. What does it mean to be a featherless, two-legged, linguistically conscious creature born between urine and feces? That's who we are. And it's a frightening question. Most of us would rather stay on the surface and deal with stimulation and titillation or self-medication, forms of addiction, whatever it is, to allow the present to be produced over and over again rather than expanding our hearts, minds, and souls and bringing together the three dimensions of time, the past, the present, and the future. But this question of what does it mean to be human, for me, has to do with who I am. And I know I am who I am because somebody loved me. Somebody cared for me. Somebody attended to me. Somebody cared. Somebody focused on me, targeted me. And my hunch is that's true for you. Well, no, Brother West, I'm self-made. Well, I go with George Clinton and a brother who I have an album coming out named Bootsy Collins. I begin with the funk. We all emerged in the funk, our mama's wombs. If you birth yourself, stand up, testify, and I'll get if you're that self-made all the way down, I'd like to take a look at you right now. This American myth, being so self-made all the way down as if there are not antecedent conditions in place before you arrive, and somehow you thinking and making the move from your mama's womb, you won't end up in the tomb, that your body will be the culinary delight of terrestrial worms one day. That's funky too. Means what? Which means already we have a sense of intellectual humility, even though we want to muster the courage to think critically. And anytime you talk about forms of oppression or domination, beginning especially with legacies of white supremacy in America or in the USA, you have to wrestle with forms of death. And it's difficult in American civilization, and oftentimes in its dominant forms is a death-dodging, death-denying, death-ducking civilization. Doesn't want to deal with the underside. Doesn't want to deal with the dust, the soil, the earth, that funky stuff. No, we oftentimes like deodorized discourses. Like look at U.S. Constitution, no reference to the institution of slavery. You're going to end up fighting a civil war over an institution not invoked in your Constitution. Well, Brother West, that's just a tension between principle and practice. No, that's called hypocrisy and mendacity. That's called chickens coming home to roost. That's called you reap what you sow. That's called what's in the wash comes out in the rinse. Truth crushed the earth arises again. The condition of truth is to allow suffering to speak. Adorno says in Negative Dialectics, echoes of Hebrew scripture. He's right. He's right. Deodorized doctrine, just like that American Hamlet, that white literary blues man born in Mississippi. Born Thomas Lanier, but we know him as Tennessee Williams, a streetcar named Desire. Blanche DuBois, what is it about you? I'm living in a world of make-believe. I'm living in a house of cards. I deny history, memory, reality, and death. And I end up in a wheelchair, broken down, hit up against a dead end, almost like those precious derelicts. Eugene O'Neill's The Ice Man Cometh and Harry Hope's Alone. Empty, shallow, hollow. What's so wonderful about Skidmore College at its best is that we are going to begin with connecting any discussion about race or gender or empire or class to wrestling with what it means to be human, which takes us to the center of what the Greeks call paideia, not schooling, deep education. You don't come to Skidmore just getting access to a skill in order to get a job and live well in some vanilla suburb. No, not the students at Skidmore. You come to be unsettled and unearthed. Is that right? Don't lie. You come to learn how to die. Once, the way the great Montaigne said, if you really love wisdom, you want to learn how to die. To philosophize is to learn how to die. Or as even Seneca put it, we don't expect too much profundity from the Romans. These are the Greeks or the Egyptians. But Seneca had something to say. He said, well, he or she who learns how to die unlearns slavery. There's freedom in mustering the courage to think critically, and learning how to die is examining your assumptions and presuppositions, your dogmas and your doctrine. And when you give up a set of assumptions, when you give up certain dogma, that's a form of death. And that's the only way you grow, the only way you mature, the only way you develop is in dying. There's rebirth that can flow from dying, but there is no rebirth, there is no maturation, there is no development without learning how to die. So when you do graduate, most in 4 years, I hope, you say to yourself, I am a very different person than when I entered, because when I read Toni Morrison's Beloved, and I wrestled with Shakespeare's Hamlet, I couldn't deal with David Foster Wallace's Infinite Jest. Threw it against the wall. I listened to monks, epistrophe. It got to me. Maybe even for a moment, and I pray this is true for each and every precious student here at Skidmore, that you leave the classroom and recognize that your worldview rests on pudding, if only for a moment. That's called education. And when you talk about race, you're talking about a deep dogma and practice in the shaping of a noble experiment in democracy, but also an ignoble experiment in empire. You have to think of both ideas at the same time, the way F. Scott Fitzgerald put it in the crack-up of 1938 in Esquire magazine. A test of a first-rate intelligence is what? That hold two opposing ideas in the mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function. Ask our indigenous peoples. 1492 was the beginning of World War I. It's been going on ever since. Empire. Ask those who keep track of the heroic actions of Brother Thomas Jefferson, Brother George Washington, against the British Empire. Absolutely heroic, magnificent, courageous, but slaveholders. So it's freedom and slavery. Freedom for some, enslavement for others. That 22% of the inhabitants of the 13 colonies who were enslaved, whose very labor generated the wealth, was the precondition of the democratic experiment, just like our precious indigenous brothers and sisters whose babies were violated, whose lands was dispossessed, as a precondition for U.S. democracy. Can we keep both ideas in our head at the same time? The noble democratic experiment and the ignoble imperial one, in which white supremacy, male supremacy clash at work. And this is not PC chit-chat.